Good evening, my fellow travelers on spaceship Earth. It is I, and I am Guy, coming to you live from Applewood Station in Denver, Colorado, where it is a balmy 3 degrees Celsius with light rain slash snow that you may or may not be able to see because this camera is kind of, I don't know. I need to come up with some kind of way to block the light of this camera. Certainly does not look like it's snowing too much yet. Hey, Brent. Well, thank you, Brent. I see you as well. So, I am trying to figure out what I'm doing tonight. What am I doing tonight? I'm waiting for Brad to show up is what I'm doing tonight. It's all right, man. It's all good. All was as it should be. As it oft is. I'm trying to figure out why I screenshotted stuff. I'm like, why did I make a screenshot of this? Does anybody even know, really? I don't think so. Not terribly sure. I know. And that's the thing. All right. All right. Here we go. Hang on real quick. Howdy, howdy, Brad.
Okay, I don't think I have everything right yet. Check 1, 2. Okay, now I can hear you.
You can hear me. I can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay. Oh my gosh, there she is.
Twice in the same week, man.
I know, right?
I'm stalking you.
Well, that's a given.
Oh boy.
I feel like that's just kind of normal. That's a Tuesday for me.
Yeah.
Brent says hello. I think Brent's the only person watching our stream, but our one person watching the stream says hello.
Cool.
So, well, I think you can probably dictate what we're doing then. Because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do tonight. And I was like poking around and pushing buttons. And I'm like, I don't know what I want to do. This will be good because then you can tell me what to do.
Okay,
tell me what we're doing.
Well, I need to learn. So I'm going to hope Brent's not looking for something amazing. I was hoping that you could basically help me just... I've got a manga character, whatever story, that I'm going to try and create.
So we're going to do it from scratch?
Yes. So I've already got like at least about 3 pages of storyboard, chicken scratch. Let me click allow on this real quick before I forget. Let's see. Okay, allegedly that is sharing my Clip Studio.
Yep, I got it.
Okay.
We got it up there. I'm trying to decide which one's probably the best for this, probably.
Well, that's what I got to do is flip this to half screen. Well, there we go. Now I can see everything. So I'm trying to go on YouTube, learn that kind of stuff. And I guess I figured if not to keep you too long tonight, but if you even can help me just get off the ground floor with setting up the file right, the parameters, the page, the bleed, and some of the quick part of like I was trying to do 3D characters, which is probably beyond where we'll get tonight.
I'm gonna see whether this is better. Maybe this is better.
And I found them, but for the life of me, I could not. Oh, here it is. Slide it over. Okay. I could not figure out how to change, like the size of his biceps or his thighs and the body fit. So I could change his height, basic parameters. But
do you have Clip Studio 3, or are you still on Clip Studio?
I've got. No, I do have Clip Studio Paint EX.
Is it version 1, 2, or 3?
Oh, that's a good question. File.
Go up to Window. I think it's actually Window.
Okay.
Let me see if it's under Window.
Yeah, where is it?
Might be. Oh, it's under Help. Help version information.
There you go. 2.6, 2.0, I guess.
Okay. So I don't know if we can do the modified stuff. I don't know if that came with 3 or if that came with 2. Let's see. Anyway, we'll find out in just a few minutes.
Is that just a download, or do I need to pay for the upgrade?
If you paid for the full thing, then
Yes.
you have to pay for the upgrade.
I still have to pay just for the upgrade.
So they've got 2 versions. Either you bought it free and clear, at which time every time they make a new version, you have to buy the next version free and clear, or you can subscribe like you do with Adobe. I hate Adobe, and so I am more than happy to pay every so often, another $150 or whatever, because I understand they've got to make money somewhere. They've got to have some way to pay for it. So I'm cool with that. And I'm trying to encourage them not to go to subscription model as much as possible. But first, let's talk a little bit about the beginning piece that you had talked about, which was just setting it up.
Yeah.
So when you set the new folder, can you see what's going on here? Let me make that full screen temporarily. That's not what I wanted to do. Let's try this again. Let's do this, because that's probably a little bit better. Temporarily, I'll make my screen the main screen. Okay.
I'm gonna close that because I don't need that.
Can you see this full size?
I will probably have to enter full screen. Yes.
Yeah. So what we've got kind of going on here is this is new. So you go over to File, New, and this brings this dialog box up. Mm-hmm. The first thing we should probably discuss is, are you making manga, or are you making an American comic book? Or are you making one of those hybrids that we were talking about before, where it's manga sized, but it's American comic book rigged?
Well, I guess I won't be doing it from right to left, right? Because isn't that how they do traditional mangas? You read it in a sense backwards.
Yeah, but even American manga has the aspect ratio. It's the same. So I guess I should say, if you can imagine that American manga comic or American comic book pages are, I believe, 4 to 6 in a ratio, and manga ends up being 4 to 5. So, in other words, an American comic book page is taller than a manga page would be. So the decision, and I can actually illustrate this right here with existing comics that are right here. So here's a manga, and I'll show you that in a second. I'm just trying to keep things from sliding and falling to their doom. Don't fall to your doom. But let's just take Epic Kill and Macross. If you look at, and I'll go back to my main thing, because this actually is probably helpful. It kind of has just sort of a start. When you look at, first of all, I mean, obviously there's a size difference between the two, but even with the same size difference, the aspect ratio, you can see it. These are taller than they are wide than the manga, which will be. So, like I said, this is like if you were to look at this like a 4:6 versus a 4:5 ratio. So when you're talking about which way do you want to go, it's not just that. The the way the pages are laid out is different in an American comic because you got more space and less of a bleed than you do when you look at a Japanese comic. Well, that's a full page. That's not going to help us any. But you've got more bleed right here. You can see you've got a lot more space and gap in the safe. So it's something to contemplate.
Yeah.
If you are. And I apologize. I am suffering from the trees deciding to reproduce. And so I'm hacking and coughing because my nose won't stop running. So when we're here, that's the first thing we're going to look at. So we've got up here at the top, right in this top rack, you've got illustration, which is just one page. Since you have the EX version, we can make all of it. This is the webtoon, which is a strip. It's going to do it like a strip all the way down because that's kind of the nature of webtoon. This one's what they call comic pages right here. And then next to it is fanzines. Those don't mess with the fanzine at all. We can have all comic settings here. If you click this, then you see it adds a whole bunch of extra material. So in this one, you have control over how big your canvas is, how big your trim is, and your inner border. And we'll talk about that in a second. If I'm overloading you, I apologize. I don't mean to overload you on this one. It's just a matter of, which way are we going with this one?
Well, let me ask, because Jen was talking about, she was thinking maybe the best place for me to start to get something up and maybe get found is to put it on a webtoon. Right?
Put it on I'm sorry, one more time?
Didn't you say, Jen, put it on a webtoon?
Oh, webtoons?
Build it as a webtoon.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't necessarily know enough to decide, but I mean, is that going to screw me up as far as if I wanted to print it into a, comic book?
Yeah, if you want to print it into a comic book, webtoon is not the right place to go. And I'm not saying that Jen's wrong. Webtoon is a good place to go, but Webtoon's format is set up for phones.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is that it's just the width of a phone screen and then very, very, very long.
Yep.
So you load it and then you just scroll up to read the whole comic. So because of that, Webtoon has its own... If I say the word culture, I think you can probably kind of guess where I'm headed on this one. With a comic book, you have an internal culture of they have to be X wide, X high. They have to be, there has to be a border around the outside edge in case the trim cutting knife cuts wrong or whatever, And if you talk about Webtoon having a culture, it doesn't have the same width or height restrictions, but also in a comic book, you're going to do, panel, 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 panel. That makes total sense. But in Webtoon, they will often do open and then just one word or two words. And then you scroll up and you get one panel. And then you scroll up and you get another panel with some other words. So there's like an entirely different internal culture to it. But because of that, it doesn't print well. Because you'd end up with pages after pages of nothing. So you'd have to reorganize all of your comic to fit. Now, we've got one person who frequents my show, and they're not here tonight, I don't think. But they've been doing their comic as a webtoon as well. And it has been... apparently they get kind of poked at because it's clearly a standard comic that they just glued all of the pages top to bottom. And so
interesting.
Apparently the people who read the webtoons are I'm talking about Jackson Brent. So, but I don't know I don't think Jackson's on, although Jackson was on earlier today. So anyway, So I don't mean to be throwing so much at you. You may just want to start right now with a standard comic. It's probably the easiest. All this information I'm telling you now is probably just going to make this way too complicated, and there's no reason to. So, if you're doing a normal comic, you can click on this comic function right here, this button right here, it says comic. And this will give you all these bits of information.
So, and click on comic. All
right. And now you get all the same sort of things you're seeing with mine here on the screen. Width, height, bleed, resolution, and basic expression color. And then you can go down here and talk about all of these things in different pieces. Let me I was bringing up, and we got kind of sidetracked. I sidetracked myself. I didn't mean to. Let me go into my how-to folders because I've got how-to comic book. So if you manga page, you've seen this one probably before.
Oh yeah, I think actually I probably have that in a folder.
File, right? So the width of the page needs to be 137 millimeters and the height needs to be 190 millimeters, or 5.39 inches by 7.48 inches, or 3236 pixels by 4488 pixels. And that's the width and the height. Then this gray area, the red area is what we call the bleed. So this is a safe that you never draw in unless you intend to have it cut, unless you're okay with it being cut. So any artwork that ends up in the bleed, you should assume will be cut by the cutting blade at some point. Although modern cutters are much, much cleaner, it is something especially Mikimoto loves to do, bleed. And Mikimoto is constantly doing full bleed. So you can see it's going all the way off to the edge of the page. And that's fine. So you can, it's just that what we say is then we have safes. So this gray area then is outside of the safe. And the dark gray area in the center is your safe. So anything important to the story must stay inside this gray area. You can draw all the way out here, but you never want to put like a text bubble out here that says something important. You don't want some characters' eyes out here. Like it's important where they're looking. Yeah. So you never want to put it out in this area. You always want to put all the important stuff here. You can always draw out here, but you don't want to put anything out there. So that's the safe. Now, if you look at a US comic page, we've got a different set of aspect ratios. First of all, I guess they assume, well, actually it's true. Manga usually starts, this is for the viewers at home, because this isn't really pertinent to what you're doing tonight, Brad, but since I'm here, manga typically starts in what they call a Shonen Jump, and it's like a phone book, but it's got the same crappy paper that a phone book had, and so because of that, the blades are not that good, and the cutters aren't that good. So they actually do have a crappier cut. So because of that, their safe is bigger. We always start with a very different format because all of ours is what we call a web press. So we don't need as much bleed or as much safe. So if you really want good space, like open area that you can use, comic pages are probably better. Because you can see just looking at these two back to back, the dark gray area here versus the dark gray area there.
Okay.
So you've got more usable space on your page in a comic book. So let's just do this one to make it easy. So when we start the page,
is it the red one then?
Yeah. So just this one, it says US comic page. This is just a reference. So you'll make the width 174.63 and its height is 265.10, 600 DPI, and your bleed is 3 millimeters. So this is already set up for a US comic page.
174.63 for width.
And 265.10 for height.
0 for height.
That should make you at 6.88 inches by 10.44 inches.
Okay, and then the bleed width is still the 5mm.
It's 3 millimeters for US comics.
Oh, 3.
It's 5 millimeter for Japanese.
3. Okay, there we go. 600 DPI is fine, right?
Color. Mm-hmm.
And then color.
Yep. Now, below that, you'll see multiple pages. So tick multiple pages.
Okay.
Now, this is where we... Hey, Garuda. This is where we talk about how many pages did you want to make?
Well, I can always add more, right? So I'm not quite sure. I mean, I don't have it all written. So
Well,
start with 30 or something just so I have plenty, or
yeah, you have to do them in quads. So we always have to do 4 pages at a time. So whatever it is, it has to be multiples of 4.
okay.
And that's only because a comic book is really printed on a 11 by 17 sheet of paper and then folded over. So you've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. So each page has 4 pages to it. Each sheet of paper has 4 pages. So everything has to be in quads. So, and you can always do what the American comic books do and put advertisements for other comics, or, you know, some note from the editor or whatever if you're short a couple of pages.
Mm-hmm.
So what
Is
we'll
it just safer to go with a higher number then and just have extra pages? And
you can change the number, but it is complicated and difficult to do it.
Interesting.
I mean, it's not horrible, just they kind of assume that you will be... I'm kind of curious about how many pages are in here, if it's going to even say. It may not. It may not say it at all. Anyway, yeah, I don't think American comics don't like to number their pages. Generally, American comics are in 22 to 24 or 24 page setups. So you do 24. Right? Garuda's like, I love this stuff because I used to work with a printer. That's fair. So you might want to start with 24. The number that's on there, down there at the number of pages, assumes 4 cover pages. So if you do 24, you want to write 28 in there because you're going to be putting in a cover, which would be 4 pages.
Okay, so write in 28 pages.
Yep, number of pages 28.
Okay.
Highly recommend that you tick combine into 2-page spreads.
Got it.
And then left binding because we're not going the Japanese way.
Yeah.
On the other side, over here, it's going to ask you about your cover page and whether it should be in color or black and white. Just going ahead and make sure it's in color, and it's going to be the same thing. I use templates for everything I have, so don't worry about this section. Yeah, you did do all of our comics. So here's what it's going to show you when it says this here, the layout of it. Do you want to split the cover so that the front cover and the back cover are represented on either side of the comic, or do you want the front cover and back cover to be uniform? I prefer this. This is a preference thing.
Okay. So uniform. All right.
And then down here, the story name, I usually put this in here just so that I remember when you have multiple comics. So my comic is done in episodes and issues. There are 3 issues per each episode. So I usually put E01, I02. So episode 1, issue 2. And then subtitles, and then the author thing, all of that. That doesn't show up in the final version. This is just for your benefit.
You put, I'm sorry, EO1 is in episode 1, and then...
Yeah, you don't have to follow that method.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I recommend you number them, but whatever is your internal numbering system, whatever works for you. For me, Bellatrix Rising is going to be in episodes because it's a Star Trek comic just with a funny hat. So because I'm doing Star Trek-esque, all of my comics are episodes, like they'd be an episode of the TV series. So that's why. But
Okay.
I doubt seriously you're doing a Star Trek comic, so you probably don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. Well, do I just put my story name, or do I need to have like
story
just,
name,
the title, the chocolatier, or whatever it is?
whatever you want to do, however you want to do it. Are you going to do more than one story?
Well, I guess. Okay. So, watching all of Crunchyroll that I do every day, practically,
Yeah.
I figured it was going to have episodes, right? And then there'd be a first season, second season, possibly. I don't know about the first season, second season, but so episodes in one longer story, right? So,
Sure. So they'd be issues.
Okay.
Because comics are usually done in issues. I only have episodes because it's Star Trek.
Okay. So do I put issue 1 or do I put?
Yeah, I'd put issue 1.
Okay.
You'd put issue 1. Or you can put the name. Whatever you want to do that will help you remember it. Because you might pull one of these up later on. When you make a proof and send it to the printer as a proof, like to your local printer in your house, so you can proof it and look it over, you can have it print all of this information on the bottom. So later on, you can look through all these pieces of paper, and at the bottom, it'll say this is issue 1. You'll be like, oh, that's right. Yeah, I already did issue 1. I need to work on issue 5. So I'm looking for the one that says issue 5 on the bottom, or whatever.
Okay.
However it works for you.
This is something I can come back later and say, oh, I want to change that and define more parameters.
Some of these pieces will not be changeable.
Okay.
So I'm not 100, because like once it saves this file, it's going to put some of it as part of your primary file function. So, for example, we have learned that if you try to mess with the individual pages outside of Clip Studio, it will completely mess everything up and make it impossible for you to get back into it.
Wow.
So once you set it up internally, you have to only operate in here. That's a warning I will give. So what it will do is, in a minute, when we're done with this, it's going to make, in your case, you said 28. It's going to make 28 files plus a 29th file that is the overriding stuff. You'll see each one of those files will be editable. You can open up page 53 or whatever. Let's say page 22. You can open up page 22 in Clip Studio and edit it. What we've learned, though, is if you delete the file that says page 22 and then try to open up the big file in Clip, it completely freaks out because it's looking for that file in the header file. So you can edit them individually. Don't delete them or move them or rename them. So if it says it's page 22 and you look at it and you're like, you know what, I want to swap page 22 and page 15, and you rename them, it'll mess up everything in here. So you need to do it in Clip. Garuda, to answer your question, no, I didn't work on either one of those. My feeling for how what RTG was more like what we're doing right here tonight, which was helping other comic artists learn. So I didn't want to get involved in the printing side and publishing and that kind of stuff. Garuda comes from our drawing group, who meets on Tuesdays and Thursdays from time to time. And so the original drawing group had sort of 2 schools of thought. So one school of thought was the drawing group gets together to make comics that we will sell at conventions. And the other school of thought was the drawing group gets together to help other comic artists learn how to do comics. And so I was of the latter, not the former. And so I didn't make comics to be printed out of RTG. I made my own comics. So it's not any choice either way. I guess in the end, we discovered it probably wasn't the wisest move to stay there because money got involved. It's one of those things I've learned over the years that never get involved in projects with money with your friends. It ends up going bad. You know?
That it can.
Yeah, so it's just the way I learned. So I when they were like, we're all gonna pitch in, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna.
Okay,
Yep.
so I'll just put Chocolatier in an issue 1.
There you go.
And then
Perfect.
below that, number of stories, I just need 1.
One.
And then subtitle, I don't know if I need that, do I?
No, not really. In my instance, I have the episode, the code, if you will, for my episode, and then down below I add the subtitle. But all of this section right here, it only is seen by you. You won't be printing that.
Okay, so I put my name as the author, but
Yep. No, that's it. That's what you should be doing. I put G.S. Davis,
okay.
you know, because that's who I am. And then down here in the folio, don't worry about that. We don't need to worry about that at this point.
Okay.
Because you're not doing the folio is if you do multiple comics together, but that's not the way we're doing this. We're doing one comic at a time.
Okay.
Now here's the thing before you hit go. Up here it says file name comic. So in this case, you know, you put, let's just say, Bellatrix Rising, whatever, issue 2, let's just say. And then underneath it, it's going to have save to, and you want to hit this browse and find a home for it, because it's going to make a folder.
Oh yeah.
And in that folder, it's going to put 29 individual things.
Okay.
So,
yeah, currently I've got it going to the cloud, but I may go ahead and put it to my external hard drive.
however you want to do it, just make sure it's accessible.
Yeah. So just put my story title and then I guess underscore.
It's going to name it this dot c whatever clip CLP I think is the extension, or CLIP. So it'll name it this dot CLIP is what it's going to end up naming it. Which is why you want to make sure you put issue 2 on there, or issue 1, or issue 3, so that if you do end up with them all in the same area, it's not going to be, you know, Bellatrix Rising and Bellatrix Rising and Bellatrix Rising. You're like, that didn't help me any.
Yeah. Okay, select folder. Okay, so I got my folder and everything.
Once you've set that up, and once we've hit the name like that, and all of this is rigged up, you can hit OK. And that will
blue tab. All right. Okay.
Yeah. And once you do, you hit OK, and it will generate the pages. It takes a second or two. And cool. I will then move on to, I'll load mine instead of making it make one, so you can see what it looks like.
Okay. Slide this over so I can make it bigger.
Right? Garuda's not wrong. Document final, no, really, 3.5.17.42.psd. You're not wrong, Garuda.
Yeah, been there. Final, recovered. Dot.
Yeah, right? Recovered, final, no, really, final. So this is what you should see when you're done. You see the same thing there. I didn't do a couple of these things with issue 1 that I wanted to, so it looks a little different than yours because I learned my lesson the hard way. So issue 1 still works just fine, but it is a little different. So things to remember is that your cover page and the cover inside is going to be, you know, this page right here, and then the inside we very rarely put a comic on. Just traditionally, usually they have some kind of the story so far or an advertisement or something. So you don't want to start on that first page.
Which says cover inside, right?
Yeah, cover inside. You don't want to.
Okay.
You don't want to write on that. You'll start on page 3.
Gotcha.
So that actually becomes page 1. I wish there was a way to fix that. There isn't. It's just the way that Clip works. The funny part is if you number your pages, it will number it correctly. But 3 will have a little 1 on it, and 4 will have a little 2 on it, and 5 will have a little 3 on it. You're like, this is maddening. It's absolutely maddening. Or a thank you page, as Brent has said. Because there's
Nice.
right. So
Okay.
this is Clip, although Clip Studio and Manga Studio are the same thing, Garuda. So now that you have these, the way to simply do this, it's very straightforward. On this page, you just take whichever page you're working on and you double click it.
Okay.
And it'll bring it up. And
Paste.
once you do, it has everything like we've been dealing with Clip Studio Paint. It's just that you now have this little area right here in the middle where you can see your pages as they've been laid out. Now, personally, I don't get to this point until later for me. That's just my personal thing. What I usually do is I start with a different document. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here. I start with this document. Right? So this is just one page. But it's one page of each one of these. Each page of this comic. And this is how I lay it out.
Your storyboard, okay.
Yeah, I just storyboard it effectively. This is not the right one. I need the other one. Because I, of course, set it up stupidly. There we go. This is much more like it. Because I made 2 of these. I learned later on that you wanted to make these so that they were attached. But this has a couple of things that we've learned over the years about comics as well. For example, this is the commitment range. When you publish this, which, by the way, I publish my comics on Global Comics with an X.com. My comics live out there, and they actually, right now, Global Comics has got Image Comics, DC Comics on there, and my comic. So, like, I'm in the running with everybody else, which is great. So, a few months ago, I was, like, in the top 6 for mecha sci-fi, which was awesome. And I was like, whoa. Like, I was beating out other Image Comics and stuff. I was like, yeah. So it was like...
Nice.
But what Jackson, which is who we've been talking about, Jackson, who usually... they work for Global Comics, and so it helps because they know all the little ins and outs. One of the things that they had discovered was if you have a reader who reads through you can see how many readers stayed on each page. So if you have, as you look at the way that it lays out the comics later on, you can see how much time they spent on a page and what was how many readers you had. So.
Interesting.
If you had 20 readers read only to page 6, and then the numbers start going 20, 19, 15, 13, 10, then you realize that they're giving up on your story pretty quick.
Ah.
So we call that the commitment range, is between 4 and 8. Page 4 and 8 is this commitment range. So Garuda, I really like Clip Studio Paint. I'm not ecstatic about their subscription model, and it makes me mad because, of course, this is super popular to make everybody subscribe to your software because it's real easy for it to just phone home and find out that you didn't pay your subscription and then shut the entire software down on you. So I feel like that's hostage taking. but you can buy this software outright still. So that's one of the reasons why I'm staying with Clip Studio. It's because you can still buy it outright. But I figure everything's going to go to subscription at some point, and it's just going to be, I just need to accept that $450 every month is going to go to random everythings to keep everything running. And, being an ADDer, I will forget. So, I don't know if you want a copy of this document, Brad, but you are welcome to it. What I do, right? I know, me too.
Yeah, I've got Adobe.
Yeah, me too.
As well.
And I'm trying to get out of it. It's one of the nice things about changing my career path is that I think I can get out of Adobe. But
so Guy, this isn't the same exact document, and you're just drawing differently on the pages. This is a different way to set this up.
This is a single page. I'll show you. Okay. I made one of these for myself so that I don't have to. I have to find where I hid it, but I hid it for myself so that I will not accidentally screw it up, because it's the master. So here we go. So all it is a JPEG that looks just like this. It's just a JPEG. And what I'll do is I made it high resolution so you can zoom all the way into here because it's super high resolution. You don't print this out. If you did, these pages would be this tall and about that wide. So you don't print it out. You only use it here. But what I'll do is I'll add another layer like this. I'll just add another layer. And then I just, draw in my, I want a frame here and a frame here. And I don't know, that looks like a good frame. And then on this page, maybe I'll have a big open frame and then a circle because that looks good. And, so I get to lay out my pages however I want.
So if I did print it and drew on it in those little images, I could be what you call a microaggressionist artist.
Right, exactly. It would have to be a very sharp pencil too. It's a pretty good dad joke, I'm not gonna lie.
Nice.
But it's got a couple of things. This has a couple of things that that are concepts built in. So for manga is usually done in 16-page batches with 2 groups of 16 pages making one issue. And that's because in Japan, that phone book stuff that I was talking about, those phone book ones, when you're a new manga artist that nobody's heard of, they'll run your comic in those Shonen Jumps, which usually run 16 pages of your comic every month in it. And they run it with a whole bunch of other people's 16 pages of comics, and they just do them printed on different colored paper. So it'll be 16 pages that are blue, and then there's 16 pages that are green, 16 pages are purple, and 16, and then that way you just read through it and you can see when each one is. But that's the way it's done in Japan with these jumps. Well, because of that, tradition has it now that manga is always done in 16-page units. And they're split by what we call a splash. Splash pages are the same in English and in Japanese. So a splash page is like, this is Macross, and here is the end of a chapter. So they're ending a chapter there, and we begin another chapter with another open page. Usually, though, they do what we call a splash, and I'm going to look for a splash here. He's being nifty and deciding not to do splashes because he's Mikimoto and he can get away with it because he's a goober, and he's trying to prove me wrong. Because he's not doing splashes in this. Let me see if I can find a different manga.
I'm gonna say I got a couple right next to me. I wonder if Haru Itagaki, I'm saying his name wrong. Itagaki, the guy who does Beastars.
Oh yeah, yeah. V stars would be one, but also here we go. I've got Battle Angel. This is actually in English, but that doesn't make any difference. It's still the same.
Yeah, he doesn't. He just looks like he did his.
So this is a splash.
Okay.
On this side, they've actually got the splash. This is a 2-page splash, so this is page 1. So it's actually got text. But this is a splash page. One whole page being devoted to the picture. We go 16 pages down, we got another splash. Which looks like that. So this is the splash. Usually the splash is on this side of the page, and this is the whatever's left over from your old, from the previous story. So, that delineates. So when we look at my form here, they're in blue. I just made them in blue. So this is the splash in the middle. This is the splash in the beginning. And then, of course, this is the inside back cover. So this is the inside front cover, inside back cover. You've got 2 splash pages you do. And so then when you look at the splash, and it even says here, it says splash. So you know that it's a splash page. Cool. Then you move through here, and I've made them a butt to one another so that you can draw a full page if you want to. And then you've got your commitment range. And then this green, there's a tradition in manga that all stories have 3 peaks and 1 valley. So that's just kind of a concept that's hard to explain. But if you need structure, I don't know if you want structure or need structure, or if that's even something you're worried about. But the Japanese theory is there are 3 peaks and 1 valley. Let me make it as a Sailor Moon to make an example. This is a Sailor Moon comic. The scene opens with Sailor Moon fighting a Yoma. So she does her special maneuver, goes through here. She has a little bit of trouble, but she beats the Yoma right here at page 9 and then 10. That's the first peak. Then, as we come out of that, then there's this lull right here where the characters will... I'm sorry, the first peak's right here between 5 and 6. So she beats the Yoma. She comes out. We have this lull where the characters talk to each other. Sailor Moon, using the spiral heart attack is great, but you're going to have to come up with something new to beat Yoma because there's no other way. And then that can't possibly happen because I think the spiral heart attack is great. So we go through this discussion point. Then we hit another Yoma has attacked. And then we go to a break with a splash. We come back. She's fighting that Yoma, and that Yoma beats her. So then we go into this black area right here, which is the dark part of the story, right? So then she realizes that she needs the super spiral heart attack, and that's what Luna gives her. And I don't know, I'm just making this stuff up. And so then we go back to that Yoma, and she beats the Yoma, and the end. So that's the traditional structure of a Japanese story. It is similar to the way that we do stories when you talk about a 3-act structure. So 3-act structure, Act 1, explain what the problem is. Act 2, complicate the problem. Act 3, resolve the problem, right? That's our classic 3-act structure. Plays are built that way. Books are written that way. It's not any different, really. So usually what I say is, here's your Act 1, establish at this peak. Act 2 establishes right before the splash. And then Act 3 resolves right here at the end. So between 2 and 3, that's when this whatever complication you set up here actually takes effect, is right here. And that'll give you a good rhythm in the story.
Okay.
You don't have to do that. There's no requirement of it at all. It's just there to help you if you want.
Okay.
For me, I need structure. Otherwise, I'll just ramble. I know you're shocked, but I will ramble endlessly. So you do have one of these, though, right? Do you have this page?
I don't think I got this one. I did find the the bleed page.
Yeah. Where did I give you a folder for it?
Let me see. Let me go back in the mail. Check your email you sent me. Let me see. Maybe you did send it to me. Let me see here. Hold on. Wait for it.
Yep. I'm looking around to see if there's a
US
share with Brad. You guys all have the same B names.
I have 3 attachments, but they're actually all the manga page layout.
It's fine. I'll just send it to you via email. I'm sure I've got you in an email somewhere.
$10. Yeah.
5 minutes remain. Uh-oh. That's not good. That's not what I wanted. I don't know what's going on, but for some reason my my mail book, in Outlook has changed over to only school. So I can send it to your daughter, but not you. Because she's in the same school with me. So that's even funnier. I'm like, no, that's not what I wanted. I'm like, that's not cool. So do me a favor real quick. That email message I just sent to you, or that I sent to you, can you just reply to it and say, boo or something like that, so that it'll come into my email and I can just send it back to you?
Yeah, let me pop that.
Because wherever it is, it's a zillion miles ago, or Oh, they use Japanese printing machines in India. That makes sense, I guess.
All right.
Oh, 16 pages will fit on a plate. Yeah. I didn't actually know that, but now I do. That makes a lot of sense, Garuda.
Huh.
You have added to my, this is why we do these things this way, That's awesome, actually. But yeah, we usually manga is done in 32 pages when they translate them over to America for singles.
All right, you should have a reply.
All right. Thank you, my friend.
It shows up there.
That's it. That's what I'm looking for. And then I will just add this to that. And you can feel free to modify this to your heart's content. I mean, so do as you will. And anyway, I don't want to give that to you via Facebook because Facebook shrinks it down. And that one really does need to be huge. Otherwise, you can't zoom in enough on these pages. Now, the safes on here are set up for manga pages. That shouldn't affect what you're doing between here and there, because you'll just draw them here as a rough to get kind of an idea, and then you'll mimic it when you're over on the other side. So the next question is, how many pages do you want to go? What's your story? I have been leaning towards the Stan Lee method, which is a very interesting way of comics being made. The way Stan Lee used to do comics was he'd get the artists in there and the artists would draw up the pages, and then they'd send all the pages over to the writers to write in the dialogue. So it's backwards from, write the script and then have the writer and then have the artists draw it in after the script had been written. I used to go the method of script to printing it out like this. But I ended up misunderstanding my layouts or misunderstanding the feel or the rhythm. And so I'd end up with page after page of, excuse me, I'm having a real problem talking all of a sudden. Thanks, trees. Anyway, yeah, well, no, that makes total sense, Gruta. I ended up, whenever I wrote the script, I wouldn't judge, and so I wouldn't do a good job of judging, and I'd have characters talking to each other, and you'd end up with, like, let's say 25 text bubbles on a page. And once you put the page down, you're like, oh my goodness, it's just text bubbles. There's no space for art. So recently I've been kind of going back through, and my stories never had splashes. They never had, there's a Japanese philosophy called Ida, and it's written in a character that looks like this. And what it means is the in-between. So it means to pause or have a moment in between. And so the idea being, you have the stories going along and you've got all this stuff kind of happening here and here, and you've got all these things, and then something super dramatic happens here. And so for this page, you have nothing but one character staring off into the distance or whatever. So you have this pause that holds. And I couldn't ever get that when I wrote the scripts first, because I wouldn't see it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to see and go, oh, here I really need to stop the story for a minute to let both my characters feel what's happening and have the readers feel what's happening, this Ida. And so I never got that until I went the Stan Lee method. Now I do the Stan Lee method, which is, I think this part will be this scene, and then this part. And usually up here in this light blue area, I will put, scene 1, and then scene 2, and, Bob and Tim, and, Sarah, and, I don't know, Liam, or whatever. So remind myself which characters are talking in here and what it's about. Sometimes I'll even put, Bob sets up the bomb. Hey, bomb, or whatever, so that I remember that's what this scene is. And that's what this light blue area up here is for you to write yourself notes before you get into this. So you can do that.
Okay.
So that's the concepts therein for using this page. I love these. These are my favorite because I like laying it all out. And sometimes it gets super messy, as you've seen. Like, this is much calmer than usual. This is already refined quite a bit. Like, I've already kind of refined everything. And I went through and added the dialogue using my text character. So I used the actual text tool to write in all the text. And so I'll copy all these text files out to the actual pages. That way I can go through here and kind of get an idea. Does this, like right here, it's anytime I have technobabble in my stories, I know I'm at risk for having too much on the page. But I like the technobabble. It adds a feel of reality to this. Like, these guys all have to do something. So, like, shut down computers 3 and 6 and let's leave 2 on for a few more minutes so that it can finish the report for arrival at Bellatrix. Nothing to do with the story at all. But it's something a captain would say to one of the other people on the ship.
Yeah.
Let's drop the ball and prepare for transition. All of this stuff is just chatter. But I know that when I write this, it's too much sometimes. So I like putting the actual text on these pages. So that way I can see what's going on in the story. And sometimes, you end up down here where there's no art. I know I'm going to be doing something down here, but here's all the text. And so like I know what the story should read, and I'll go back in here and draw in the pages. And when I do, I may change these dialogue boxes.
Gotcha.
So, depending on how I feel. But this is very much the Stan Lee method. Your mileage may vary. So, I'm very much becoming an adherent to it. Because like I can get all these things in here. But there's things where I need to say that the piece is specifically this. Like, here we have 3 spacecraft going out into a specific area. And then here I need them talking to, the controls. So I need to specifically show what they're doing. So.
All right. Got it.
Hope that helps you.
Yeah, that'll be great.
When you're done with this part, this laying out part, we can get back together again and I'll show you how to make it go to the other pages in an easier way. So
so you can like grab this image and copy and paste it on its own layer, so you can kind of sketch over the top, right? In your actual. Okay.
But there's also all kinds of tricks that Clip Studio does to make making comic books a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
So, and you can do it the hard way because it's not like it tells you. But so like I'm going to show you some of the easier way to do the tricks so that you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Then you can set up your 3D models. Now, back to the original statement before we go, because it's getting to be late and I have an 8:00 class in the morning. So,
oh yeah.
And it's bioanthropology. So I cannot be slow. She will run right over. We're in the middle of primates and woof, there's so much data. But one more thing, you were talking about 3D models. I'm not sure that, I think version 3 is the one where they really, really modified the 3D models quite a bit. So if you're looking out there and people are talking about how to adjust the 3D models, you may find that you don't have that flexibility because that's new to version 3. I went on ahead and purchased version 3 because I had some school fundage I could use. So, and I consider this, I've already used it twice for school, so I consider Clip Studio a worthwhile thing.
Okay.
I have a teacher who will take artwork in lieu of essays. So I've been drawing comics, and she's been giving me A's, so I'm not going to complain. It works. It works. As she said, all I want to know is that you know the material. If you can show that to me in some way that does not involve a 12-page paper, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nice. Because I can do that for you. I can make it in comics. And she's like, definitely showing you know the material. So
yeah,
it is good. All right, my friend. I hope that helped. I'm sorry. I feel like I ramble every time we do this.
No.
I'm a
rambling me off
man.
the floor, at least. It was definitely needed your insight, because I would not have accomplished that just getting it laid out right. So at least now I've got a template and I know I'm starting correctly, and drawing pictures I can do, but putting it in the right format, that would suck having to start over.
And if you're going to do 24 pages, just X out these bottom ones, 25 through 32. 32, so excuse me.
All right.
So, and if you don't want to, if you want to go ahead and do a 32-page comic, then all of this works really well.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Joseph Campbell's hero's journey and stuff?
I am not.
Okay. These are all people who have done studies on, I almost want to say ethnographic research, which, because I'm using my terminology that I'm learning in school now. Ooh.
Oh, there you go.
But Joseph Campbell did a thing where he talked about the hero's journey, which is classic stories have sort of a set of steps that you go through. Your character starts out in the normal world, whatever your normal world is, and then has an antagonizing event that forces the character to decide whether they need to transition to the other world of the story. And he's got a lot of verbology that feels like it's a fantasy, but what he really means is, your character's walking down the street, trips over a $100 bill with blood on it, now has to decide whether he's going to figure out who killed the person, where this $100, you know what I mean? And once he does, he's transferred into the other world of your story. Gotcha. So he makes the journey through that and then comes back out the other side. And you have to, it's got all these things that when you read it, you're like, oh yeah, I've seen that. Like, they're all the tropes. Like, he has to meet the wise old character that tells him what to do, sort of thing. And you're like, oh yeah, that's Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know what I mean? Like, you just immediately, you can connect it with every story that you've ever read. Gandalf, Obi-Wan Kenobi, they all meet this wise old character. It doesn't have to be male, and it doesn't always have to be old, but there's always the person who comes along and says, this is a good idea for you to go through this story, Yeah. So it's just an interesting thing to look at.
All right. Well, Jen definitely knows what it is, so she's burning a hole in the side of my head right now.
Right. Well, and I don't recommend that you necessarily follow it 100%, but definitely look into it to see if it gives you any good insight on story writing.
Well, fortunately, Jen is helping me write. So,
well, there you go. Yeah, Jen knows far more than the average person on all of this, so I wouldn't worry too terrible much.
Yeah, that master's degree.
She might lead you astray, but she's only going to lead you astray because it's funny, not because she's unfamiliar.
Well, I put doodle in my secrets.
Right. I've known you for too long. All right, my friend. I'm going to go ahead and bow out. Garuda, it was good having you over there. I appreciate this. And you really should try Clip. That would be fun. And I know Brent was here, but I think Brent went to bed. So I think we lost Brent somewhere along the line. Either way, it's good to have all of you guys here. I won't be doing a show tomorrow day, but I will probably do a show tomorrow night. So I'll see you all then.
Cool.
And as always, keep your eyes on the stars, guys. Bye-bye.
Peace out.